All right. Hello and welcome to our second webinar today. This is our 15-minute mini webinar, and today we're going to be focusing on, it's pretty amazing, just a very new and very popular and relevant report that we've come out with, and that's called the Remote Worker Self-Study Workbook. Whew. These names are really long. My name is Christina, and I'm the training director here at Extended Disc. And joining me today is my colleague, Markku Kauppinen, president of Extended Disc. Hi, Markku.
Hi, Christina. Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining us.
As with most of our mini webinars, we will be recording this. And for those of you that need to leave early or want to review or share later on, it'll be posted on our YouTube channel as well as our extendeddisc.org website. Questions, we try to answer them live, but we usually, not gonna lie, don't get to them because we only have 15 minutes. So please put them in the Q&A section, and we promise we will follow up after today's session. So let's get going. Here is the cover of the Remote Worker Self-Study Workbook. What is some unique qualities about this one, and why is it so popular, surprisingly?
Well, honestly, when we started developing this, and I think we had a couple of webinars on this particular assessment before, we were developing this before all these horrendous things started happening with this pandemic around the world. So the timings just happened to be very, very timely, to say it that way, is that, even before the pandemic, a lot of people were working from home. They were working not their office, maybe share office somewhere, but they were not physically part of the team and have an interaction with their supervisor every day. So we were working on this assessment, and we actually finished this, like, I think in February, but we officially launched it in late May, if I remember correctly. So obviously it's taken off like so fast, because obviously all of us, like you and I right now, we working remotely. So the idea with the tool is that how do we help people who probably never really work for an extended period of time in a remote working environment? What are the adjustments we need to make? And how do we help that individual employee to take this report that, like I'm looking at my own today, how do I take this information and really think about a little bit differently what I can do in order to get accustomed to this new environment? What are the kind of behavioral changes I need to make? And really, ultimately, how can I use this as a personal development tool? How do I become more successful? Hopefully that helps answer your question, Christina.
Yeah, it's funny because Markku and I actually both took the remote worker assessment when it came out, because, we do create a lot of different types of report that, to make sure they're relevant for our clients. But we don't take the assessment, or we don't run the report every time. But this one, we were both like, we really should be running this for ourselves because we're actually working at home. And, oftentimes the assumption is that, oh, working at home, we're in our most comfortable space, so thereby it must be better or easier for us to work at home. And I know all of you out there that work at home find that it's not always the case. So this really kind of helped me personally just kind of recenter myself to understand that, someone like myself who's an S-style, I kind of like the routine, and, being put out of the office all of a sudden was not that comfortable, and just kind of regrounding myself and just trying to find out things that motivated me when I worked remotely, and what types of things I tended to avoid that I needed to focus on. So from a personal standpoint, I think Markku and I would both agree that it was, we can speak from experience. It was really, really helpful.
Yeah, it's a great point. Like you said, when we launch these new assessments almost daily, we don't run our own results in that new format because we have a pretty good idea doing this for such a long time what the results will tell us, but this is quite different. And if you're a client of ours, because the way Extended Disc works is that once a person completes the questionnaire just one time, you're able to reorder the results at no additional cost, and you don't have to complete the questionnaire again. I would really encourage you to run this report, because I think you're going to learn a few things that may surprise you. So Yeah, I've almost looked dumbfounded because I learn new things about me, and that's the idea with all of our assessment is that hopefully we find some blind spots that we may not be aware of, which I think are the greatest opportunities for us to develop because we may have not really recognized some behavioral patterns in ourselves.
Exactly. So let's go ahead, Marku, and share just kind of some of the different parts of the report. This one, you can see it in the upper left, we have 5 key work factors, and they're not all on one page, so don't worry. But we break down kind of what are the key work factors in working remotely. This specific example I pulled out is focusing on self-discipline, which is one of the 5 key work factors. Do you want to talk a little bit about that, Marku?
I do, and one thing before we dive into that, I'd like to mention is that this report is really designed for people to consume the content on their own. Now, if they have somebody to help them debrief the results, they will get more out of it because I think the conversations about the results is always very beneficial. But the report is divided in 3 main sections. The first one is the key work factors. We talked about self-directiveness, self-discipline, and other things you can see on the screen. And here we're talking about self-discipline, and like you mentioned, Christina, a moment ago, working from home, ideally, quickly, that's a great idea. No commute, etc. It sounds wonderful, but there's a lot of distractions. If you have family members, pets, you name it, you have to do laundry and clean the kitchen and things that you didn't get done over the weekend because whatever, so there's a lot of distractions, and this really helps you. This section is to understand how to really get a control of that self-discipline aspect. And the way these reports are done, it's very intuitive in terms of interpreting them. More to the right you are, like in the top half of that little image, ignoring unnecessary details, inspiring, encouraging people. These are the kind of behaviors that are very comfortable and natural to this individual. The ones that you see highlighted in red are areas that you really need to kind of focus on, because if they are important, those are behavioral aspects that will require more energy, concentration, and effort from this person. So then we can put in the context of our remote working environment and see if there are some adjustments we may need to make. And of course, we do the same with the other 4 areas that we call the key work factors.
Yeah, and you can see how what we mean by self-study. You can literally hand this report to an individual and it's very intuitive. You understand green with those higher scores means that those are key work factors that are comfortable to you versus the ones in red. So there's not a lot of training involved. And as Marku said, the coaching aspect, you definitely will always benefit a client to have that additional coaching.
And then you have to take 2 things. Sometimes I think people, because remote work is fairly new to us, we tend to think in terms of getting my work in general done at home. However, we still have our specific work responsibilities that are based on the requirements of success in my job role. So we are looking at those 2 things together, because we are not really talking about how you are comfortable and productive at home. We are really focusing on how you are productive and successful in your job role, even though you are working from home. And I think that's an important distinction to make, because sometimes what I've seen is we tend to separate those 2 issues, which there are 2 aspects to it, but ultimately we are focusing on job performance.
No, that's an excellent way to say it. So here are the key work factors, but we also incorporate key mental factors. And you can see here, there are 3 that fall under this category. We have my attitude, my trustworthiness, and my adaptability. And on the page, the sample that I pulled out is focusing on my attitude. Do you want to describe what's going on here, Marku?
From terms of interpretation, again, very intuitive, but we approach is the same. We are looking at, again, how do we succeed at our job role, even that we are working remotely, and really thinking about who we are as an individual and what kind of adjustments when it comes to our mental attitude and my trustworthiness and adaptability, what are the challenges and strengths that I have that will help me succeed in my job role. And again, the approach we are taking here is that individual employee will look at this report and not trying to take it all at one time. It is something that you have to, and this is very clear in the assessment results, break into smaller blocks and kind of think about it and return back to, because if you think about it, there's a really big changes we are going through as remote workers. So we can't just read a one assessment result in 30 minutes and think everything's going to be different. We have to really take it step by step. And when we return the results and look at it from different angles, not only the key work factors, but the mental factors as well, then we can begin to think about what kind of adjustments we really need to make to help me succeed. Again, not only in remote work, but in my job role as well.
Excellent. So here are the two key factors. We have the key work factors, we have the key mental factors, and now we have what we call the key contact factors. And it's kind of ties into what Markku said. Even though we are working in our home, we are still part of our organization. We're still part of our team. So these factors focus on how to better communicate with you, how to communicate with your team, and how to initiate communication with others. So this one, Markku, I picked is called How to Communicate with You. So, you know, by now everyone's figured out how to interpret it, but let's talk a little bit about it.
Well, the communication obviously changed with the remote work environment. It's very different to do like we and I, we're doing this Zoom call right now. I love it in many ways, but in many ways I miss all of the one-on-one contacts that we are able to have with one another, because you miss so much in the terms of communication. So this part of the report really is trying to help us in the communication in this new world of remote working, and always keeping in mind that we don't only want to help people communicate more effectively in the remote environment through Zoom and other methods, but also how do we convert that information into success in our job role. So if you think about communication, there are different aspects. You know, you can also look at how do I tend to communicate? What are those preferences? But also, how do I communicate with my team members who are virtual when we have the Zoom meetings? What are the kind of adjustments I should make in order to become more successful in influencing others, motivating them, and so on, depending on my role in the team? And how to initiate communication with others. It is different, but we need to think about how do we make those conscious decisions to really try to be as effective as we can, to really focusing our communication toward not only effective interactions, but being successful in our job roles and helping our team to succeed.
Exactly. So for those of you that are interested in how to use it, you know, you can reach out and, you know, connect with us. We have a lot of clients using it quite differently. So we can give you some suggestions if you'd like to take a look at the report or run it for yourself, and you need some additional assistance. Again, we're here for you. Any last thoughts or tips for people listening right now, Markku?
Well, two things. If you're already our client and using the extended disk, I highly recommend you having a couple of your employees run this remote worker assessment and see what kind of impact it will make. And if you are one of the decision makers, run it on yourself, because I think it really expands how you can look at assessment tools in the remote work environment. If you're not a client and you're interested in this assessment and you want to do a demo, just contact us, go to a website at extendeddisk.org. You see our email address and phone number there. I think that's really the best way to do it. You know, you have to get that test run, if you will, to see if it may or may not be a fit for you to help you succeed in this new remote worker environment.
Exactly. So check it out. So just for those of you upcoming, we do have a couple webinars coming up next week. Part of our SCA series, we'll be focusing on one of Markku's favorite SCA reports, which is the Excuse Index report.
I love it.
No excuses
No.
for not joining. And then we also have understanding extended DISC profiles. You know, a lot of you work with our reports, you're familiar with it, but you know, it's always good to get a little refresher or maybe some insight into how to debrief the extended DISC profile. So I highly encourage you guys to join us there. If they want to know about the webinars or any additional webinars, what should they do, Marku?
Go to extendeddisc.org, right-hand corner, top corner, find the events tab, click on there. Even if you can't make the date or time, please register because we will send you the recording after the webinar. So we're gonna have 2 webinars next week, one obviously on DISC profiles. And I just wanna emphasize again that the SCA, which is short for Sales Capacity Assessment, have nothing to do with DISC. They are not DISC theory-based assessments, but I think you'll find this one particularly interesting. We always want to know when it comes to salespeople, are they making excuses? Answer typically is yes, but more importantly, how many excuses they are making.
Exactly. Thank you guys all for joining us. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.